Today we're going to discuss the 10 reasons why Halo 5's campaign didn't work for many of us fans, and how to improve the story moving forward, and how to improve Halo 6. And of course, if you have any comments, ideas, or if your mind gets thinking about how to improve the story overall, be sure to let us know down in the comment section below. So let's get into it. At number 10, militaristic sci-fi to sci-fi fantasy. So, the death of Halo, the franchise that forgot who it was a viral video that went out in late February of this year here in 2017. Now, this video basically had a bunch of really strong points in it taken from some YouTubers, some old videos, and quite honestly, it was a little bit disturbing to watch. One of the biggest things that you noticed in the video was Halo 1's ending, which came out in 2001, and then of course 15 years later Halo 5's ending, and how different it was. Like, the last few moments that you could play in the game were so different, and Halo 1's ending was so much better than Halo 5's ending. You know, you're in a warthog going through this huge spaceship and it's all exploding and everything's going crazy with flood beasts everywhere, and then in Halo 5 you're just slowly walking up a ramp and then you press a button. So it's just amazing to see how these things have changed and evolved, and seeing that all together was very disturbing actually to watch. So that's not what we're really going to be talking about here in this point. You see, every Halo though prior to Halo 5 had a special real-like feeling to them, and this is what number 10 is basically, and that includes Halo 4. We can easily say that Halo has always been a military shooter where you live and die on the battlefield, a true war game. Soldiers everywhere, big ass military vehicles everywhere, and plenty of gung-ho side characters that gave us something to relate to, like Sergeant Johnson. We were all familiar with Earth's military forces, thus giving us something to compare Halo to. Now, Halo 5 went out of the norm for Halo and brought us into a lot of crazy ideas and over-the-top moments to add the wow factor to the series. In fact, they did a lot of fan service, and turns out too much fan service turns out to make a game pretty poor in some ways if done incorrectly, which it was, I think, in my opinion. Certain aspects of the campaign just didn't make sense with the Halo story, thus making a game that seemed more like a fantasy than Halo. While Halo 5's story would have been much better in book form, the in-game version was too different for most fans to relate and really get into. At number 9, Halo 4 existed? Halo 4 has one of the most interesting and deep stories of all Halo games, and that it helped become one of the best campaign experiences for many Halo fans, although that is a controversial thing. You may have not liked it, but overall the success of Halo 4's campaign was well known and definitely acknowledged. Throw in the events of Spartan Ops, and Halo has established an interesting lead for the future of the story, although Spartan Ops in many ways was a big failure. But Halo 5 came and completely changed all of that, at least changed the direction, and you may think maybe this is a good thing, but with Cortana coming back almost instantly into the campaign and the laughable death of Jul 'Mdama right in there in the first mission, everything Halo 4 set up, whether it was bad or good, was practically thrown away in a really undeserving way. Now, what I'm trying to get at here, personally, I didn't really like what they did in Halo 4, especially with Spartan Ops, although it still was Halo. I mean, that's the decision and the direction that they decided to go into, and it wasn't really respected, at least the ending wasn't, because so many people, I guess, just didn't click with it, so they just threw it away. And Jul 'Mdama's death was very, very undeserving. It did not get the respect that it should have had. Other than Jul and Cortana's fates, nothing in Halo 4 comes close to the forefront of Halo 5, making the sequel not really feel like a sequel and something entirely different. At number 8, gotta go fast. Halo 5's campaign and story was all over the place, with each mission drastically wanting you to speed through it and get to the next big wow event that takes place, almost making the act of taking your time to enjoy the setting feel unwanted. Then there are the sudden jumps from setting to setting, planet to planet, without much explanation as to why it's happening and what's going on. In short, there just isn't much time to sit and take anything in before moving on to the next part of the campaign. They obviously had a lot of ideas here, but the game was obviously rushed and there was no time to really take in anything because it was just happening so quickly, so much stuff. So it just actually ended up feeling rushed rather than something with much depth and exciting pacing, really. At number 7, Master Chief is the main character, right? 3 missions in Halo 5 are for Chief and Blue Team in a mainline Halo game. This is a very bizarre and a very radical decision that 343 for some reason thought was a good idea. Now, I know that they wanted to build Agent Locke, but they really just went balls deep with it, and that was quite a gamble, and it didn't really pay off, and it left a lot of people feeling pretty alienated, like, where is the Master Chief? And yeah, it just didn't work out that great. At number 6, weak environments. With the power of the Xbox One, we all thought that Halo 5 was going to blow us away with amazing alien worlds and environments. And in the end, though, besides the rather exceptional Synchelios missions, the environments in Halo 5 left a lot to be desired. Halo 5 has some smooth graphics, but the life in the worlds are about as alive as a Lego world. Pretty much nothing is barren. Genesis, for example, was a prime case of this. Compare that scenery with the wilderness missions of the prior Halo games and you can see where it falls flat. When you compare Halo 5 to the other games from this era, you can see that it just wasn't quite where it needed to be with its environments. The weak visual and emotional settings of the game make it more difficult for players to have that deep subconscious connection with the story, something that earlier Halos excelled at. At number 5, the emotional graveyard that Halo 5 was. So, Halo 4, even though personally it was one of my least liked Halo games, although I still like it and it's still respected in my opinion, it did have a lot of emotion. Unlike Halo 5 Guardians. Halo 5 Guardians had almost nothing that really presented a strong emotion. There was nothing that really provoked many players to feel sad or happy or relieved or scared or excited, and maybe excited, but there was just a lot of focus on the action and not enough on the emotional aspect of the game. The characters, the settings, the gameplay, pretty much most of the game failed to engage with players' emotions. And we've probably all had those emotions that we are getting from an extraordinary game, much like previous Halo games. So we've all felt very sad when Cortana died, and we were all sort of like, scared by the Covenant, scared by the Flood, kind of almost intimidated by both. But Halo 5 failed to do any of that with its campaign, with its story, and there was nothing that really stood out in the emotional department, basically. At number 4, repetitive gameplay. The campaign is standard in the video game industry of FPS shooters. Run here, shoot these things, run there, shoot some other things. After playing for a few missions, you can really see that the campaign is just one big chore. At least it feels that way. It doesn't inspire much more than your typical COD campaign, leaving you with the mindset to just get through it, maybe get to the next cutscene, rather than enjoy it piece by piece. And this may just be a part of Halo's gameplay, but it is kind of raw at this point. The cherry on top of this repetitive nature comes with the 3 copy and paste Warden boss fights, and you can definitely see that they even tried to mix this up with the armor abilities even way back in Halo Reach, but they still haven't quite fine-tuned Halo's gameplay, at least in the campaign, to make it something engaging with the story as well with the gameplay itself, and that's something that I feel like they need to definitely work on in Halo 6. At number 3, flat characters. So yes, when your game has something like 10 new characters, Agent Locke, Fireteam Osiris, I know they're not new, but Blue Team, and Master Chief, and Cortana, and the list goes on, and also, of course, the Guilty Spark wannabe AI, plus the overprotective Warden end up being the most intriguing character, oddly, there seems to be some weird issues that happens in games, or even movies, and that is that everything is stretched thin, which makes each character extremely shallow, including the relationship that these characters have with each other. So of course, this is very, very problematic if you want to tell a story that has strong emotion, which we talked about just before this, but there was nothing that really went that far, nothing that had that much depth. It felt very plain, it felt like a very fan servicey game, and I think that they did too much. There is such a thing as balancing fan service, especially when it comes to something as delicate as a mainline story Halo game. Now, there were some bright spots in some of the new team members from Osiris and Blue Team, like Vale, for instance, but really, they just ran over it, you know? There was a lot of potential there, a good idea, basically, but they didn't really hit. Like, I don't know anything about Vale. Like, we learned nothing about Vale. We had no real connection. These characters show no real emotion to each other, and they really only scratched the surface of something that if they just had a little bit more time to dedicate to these characters, it could have been so much greater, but they just had so many things pushed into this small, short, 5 to 6 hour campaign experience that it didn't really leave us feeling much. At number 2, and this one pissed many of us off, there is no difference really from Blue Team to Fireteam Osiris. Now, why is this such a big thing? Let me tell you. Spartan 2's Blue Team, the best that humanity has ever known, raised to nothing but war itself from childhood, trained to be the best and augmented to be superhumans. This is their purpose. From almost birth, this is their purpose, to be Spartans. Spartan 4s, on the other hand, are self-induced soldiers who chose to be Spartans, probably later in their lives, receiving mild augmentations and not even a fraction of the training that the Spartan 2s went through, let alone experience. And somehow they managed to play out exactly the same in the game, which is very odd because 343 Industries, for some reason over here and over there, are still trying to bring the deep lore into the campaign, while at the same time insulting us by making it seem like Spartan 2s are somewhat equal to Spartan 4s, which is hilarious. I mean, John and Spartan Locke are practically just two different skins of the same main character, which is infuriating, with only their voices and looks pretty much being the only thing that differentiates them. You can throw out many reasons why this is for developmental issues, but in hopes to make an outstanding game, this was a huge letdown for the campaign experience. It could have been so much better if they had contrasting characters, but they gave us the same guy that doesn't talk very much, very serious, and of course Spartan 4, Spartan Locke, somehow manages to go toe-to-toe with Master Chief. In reality, Master Chief would have completely obliterated Spartan Locke. And I'm not saying that Spartan Locke isn't a badass, which he seems to be a badass, although he hasn't gained my personal respect in the Halo series yet. Though I don't think he could actually go toe-to-toe with Master Chief. Like, the hilariousness of this is just infuriating. It's absolutely absurd. At number 1, great ideas, but poor execution. Most of Halo 5, especially the campaign, suffers from something unusual, and that is there are some awesome ideas that the developers came up with, but the way that these ideas were put into the game was anything but spectacular. For example, the squad system was on paper, and it was groundbreaking. The person that helped build Star Wars Republic Commando was joining 343 to implement a squad system. That was something that many of us were excited for. But overall, the game obviously had way too many ideas for just Halo 5 itself, and these ideas were probably left for maybe something on the side or even Halo 6. But obviously, it felt like a lot of Halo 5 was filler, that there was a lot of characters thrown in here just for fan approval, and I'm all down for having the Arbiter. As many of you probably remember, I was very excited about the Arbiter being in Halo 5 before he was even confirmed to be in Halo 5. I was like, hell yeah, let's put the Arbiter in Halo 5 Guardians. But The thing is I would have never agreed to that, and I think most fans would have never agreed or liked for any of these characters to return if we knew that it would have made every single character, including the story itself, so extremely shallow, that everything was rushed, that everything was unpaced, and everything was scrambled, you know? And, you know, I'm just, overall, the campaign had great ideas, but the way that it was implemented and put and configured and organized into the story was an absolute miss, making the story a miss, basically, overall. In the final game, though, going back to the squad system is weaker than the one from Republic Commando, although that is quite a high bar to set for a game like Halo 5 compared to Republic Commando with the squad system. But that's just an example of one of 343's good ideas that were executed poorly. But not only this one, as I've mentioned, there are tons and tons of ideas that just had poor execution. So the question is, what can 343 do to fix these campaign and story issues? Well, this first statement might be a little bit surprising to you, so please sit down. They need to not try to be classic Halo as much, and they need to not be so much current Halo. And that's a strange way of explaining my point here, but hear me out, alright? Halo needs to be fresh and not try to copy old Halo games or make their game fit with what's trendy in Halo 5. Obviously, Halo 5 and I think any Halo game needs fan service, of course, but they keep going on extreme opposites. Like Halo 4, they changed the soundtrack, they changed Master Chief, they changed Cortana, they killed her off, they added all these new characters and they added new enemies, they changed everything. And that was the problem with Halo 4, was that they changed so much that Halo 4 was unrecognizable for a lot of Halo fans, and it was so absurdly different than what many considered a normal Halo game. And then Halo 5 tried to go so much back to the roots with a couple new elements, and it was just kind of like, it was like, god damn, like, find a balance, you know? And so really they keep trying to go so much back to the roots or so much to the new. They need to find a balance of both, and I think that's one of the biggest things that they need to do. And of course they need to limit their ideas. Of course, any kind of creative or artistic piece needs to be cut. And that's basically what my videos are even, and what articles and what Jacob writes here is a lot of cutting. You come up with a lot of ideas, but you have to cut a lot of those and you fine tune it. It's like working on a sword, you know, ironing the sword, cutting off the bent parts and just making sure that sword, and you might have to sacrifice some parts, but at the end you have a pretty good solid sword and you've cut out all the things, the lesser ideas, so what you have left over is something absolutely amazing, and that's what they need to do with Halo 6. So shout out to Dead3751 for an $80 pledge on patreon.com/HaloFollowers. Be sure to go there, link down below for all the rewards and info if you want to help us grow here on HaloFollower. And also like this video up if you ended up enjoying, and subscribe here on HaloFollower for plenty more. And also general shout out to all of our patrons, can't forget about the rest of them. So of course be sure to check that all down in the description below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Be sure to let me know what you think about all this stuff down in the comments. Peace guys, later.